the overall strategy of the Cuyahoga County Public Library. And I think that's so important because so many times we see that libraries look at a coffee table of shiny pennies of ideas. And I hear conversations where they say, isn't this neat, isn't this a good idea? And I always want to say, for what purpose and to what end, and what are you trying to achieve with that good idea? I think I said at lunch that I know car washes in our libraries would be popular, but I don't think we should necessarily do that. Okay? Let's see, Susan, who had to leave, said that unfortunately our city managers and our mayors and our government officials and our business leaders don't know us and don't know what we do. If I were to tell you to take away one idea for those of you who are library directors, leaders in your community, get them into your library. There's a simple formula. You have a strategic plan. Don't give them the text version that looks like the DOS manual. Right? Get out a one page and talk about what you are about as a library system, and invite your mayor, your council people, your business leaders, your list of people, influential leaders in the community, and have them come into your library. This is about a $15 investment. Everyone has to eat, have lunch in your office. You get them in the office, it's captive, and you get a chance to talk to them about what's happening in your library. And it makes an impact because not only do they know about your library, they'll tell your story for you. And none of us have a large advertising budget, and I think that's something that you can do. Dionne said that so many of our ideas are within our organization, and I think that's true. And yet, I believe we failed to launch even when we know those ideas. Now, Felton told me in going last that he wanted me to give some practical examples, so that's what I'm going to try and do today. But I don't want to underestimate the amount of time that we talk about creating that culture of innovation and change in our own library, and we spend an inordinate amount of time talking about that with our leaders and our staff and getting them prepared for the innovation that we need. So framing it, I'm speaking to an Ohio audience, so you know that we haven't had funding, an increase in funding since about 2002. And my first day on the job was August 1st. There was a one-page memo from the Board of Trustees that said, in your first 60 days, we need your plan for reducing $1.9 million from the budget, which had been cut since the May interview for the job and August acceptance of the job. And I said, I'm not the brightest guy, but that wasn't covered in the interview, I'm pretty sure. Right? And yet, you know, it's now looking back, I really understand when Rahm Emanuel talks about don't waste a good crisis. That creates a burning platform from which change has to happen. And so our Board of Trustees said, look, you need to do three things. You need to know that we just passed a levy 18 months ago, and it's for 10 years, and we're not going back early. We're sticking to it. You have to have a balanced budget strategy. However you get there is your job, but you need to have that strategy. And third, do everything you can to leverage technology to move us from analog work to digital work. I think over the last 8 years, through attrition and through changes in the organization, we've reduced our full-time equivalent staff by 160. Now, we haven't had any increase during that period of time, and yet our circulation has gone from about 14 million to 17 million, and our business is now at 8.5 million. So how do you do that? Well, some of the lowest hanging fruit that is around there is self-checkout by our customers. And so many people know this, and yet I visit libraries where I say, why isn't that implemented? The technology is there, it's seamless. We rolled this out one library at a time starting in 2003. We had a great plan. We were going to do it one at a time and add a library about every 3 months. So when we went from one library to two, now we had 2 libraries staffs who were ambassadors who were willing to work at the 3rd library and to help their counterparts move forward. We heard over the next 2 years from all 21 locations, yes, it's working in the first 5, it ain't going to work in our community. It's working in 12, it's not going to work in our community. Our community's poorer, our community's not as smart, it's more diverse. All of these really excuses for not putting the technology in place. 3 or 4 years later, I can tell you today, it's 95% self-checkout for 17 million items. And we think those numbers are going even higher. And I know there will be people who will say that that's lesser service. Yeah, that's not true, it's better service. Customers tell you it's better service. There are never any lines, ever. One of the most important things, it's a library principle that we forget and our customers know it, is increased confidentiality. I had a senior tell me, I didn't want your staff to know that I had prostate cancer, right? And so they're actually, the customers are embracing our own principles of librarianship. We're also moving this now to a full e-commerce model, so that we want debit and credit card scans right on our self-checkout, and we're also going to have coin and cash on some of them. How does that help the library? Well, it reduces risk management. The staff really move away from handling any cash at all, and that's really important. And then as we look for additional funding for the library, we're going to be giving customers an option within the next year or so, which says, you know, your fines are $5.20. Would you like to round that up to $6 and give 80 cents to the library's foundation? Now, with $2.2 million in fine revenue each year, if we get 10% or 5%, that's a big number for our library foundation. Those things are out there, and really we need to move to those because, as Camila said, you know, the normal is not coming back. And Felton challenged us to say, when the money returns, are we going back to the old ways? Absolutely not, because we're in the knowledge business. We want to have knowledge workers, and we want to move away from transactions. Our people need to be used for transformational services, not transactional services, and I still see too many transactions in libraries. So hopefully you're centralizing everything. You're centralizing selection and collection maintenance. We centralized our telephone call center. So 21 locations, one call center in the main library that is staffed, depending upon how busy it is, between 3 and 8 staff. There's one number published for the library, and all calls go in, and if we need to contact a branch for that customer, we move that call to a branch. But what's happened? The service is much better in the branch itself. We've all seen that one-legged dance that references